Got to eat those W's, baby, just like Jameson Winston did against those god dang Steelers on Thursday Night Football in a crazy, crazy weather game. We were kind of hoping it was going to be a little bit better weather, but watching that one drive to the second drive and seeing all the snow on the field, you could tell that it was going to be a sloppy, terrible fantasy football game. And for me personally, I have a huge issue with that because I had Cedric Tillman in 4 leagues running and he got a whole 2.3 points. So, as they always say, Thursday night football, if you think you're going to have a dud, just don't play him because now I get to sit here and look at Cedric Tillman as one of my starting wide receivers in multiple leagues with 2.3 points. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. And with that, I welcome you back to one of the Papa Smurf, Bani with the Fanny, solo dolo video podcasts here without my compatriots from the Crossfade Sports Network on the 989 Network. That sounded awesome when I said it out loud. Anyways, we're going to talk a little fantasy football, a little bit of Thursday night football, a little bit of the casualties that happened with that crazy weather. And for me, Cedric Tillman is the big L with the 2.8 points. But I know that there was a lot of people shook up about the football on Thursday night football. We also have, let me get to my stats here. Give me a moment. Sorry for that little delay here. So I do have a lot of George Pickens stock here from Thursday Night Football. 8.8 points. Not the worst. Honestly, he's one of the best performers here this week. And Chris Boswell, who absolutely murdered last week with only 7 points. And I have Chris Boswell and George Pickens in a few leagues. I also have Pat Fryermuth, who I was afraid to play in one league because I didn't have Taysom Hill playing. And when Taysom Hill had the bye this week and I was forced to put in Pat Fryermuth, I was worried that I would get that 2.3 that I got from Cedric Tillman. But thankfully, Pat Fryermuth came out with 9.9 fantasy points. And for a tight end this season, 9.9 is absolutely fantastic. I'll take that all day. And then Jalen Warren out here with 15.4 fantasy points versus Najee at 7.4. And then the big play I feel like of the day and the one of the best fantasy tight ends of the season so far, David Njoku, 3.9 fantasy points. And then Russell Wilson has been a quality streamer lately, 13.8 fantasy points. Absolutely terrible, terrible Thursday night football game for fantasy. It was a good football game. Who doesn't love a good snow game? I appreciate that for sure, but it is definitely a bad fantasy game. A lot of us are sick to our stomachs going into the weekend, knowing that we are going to be losing in those 1v1 matchups. I have so much Cedric Tillman stock, and oh, it pains my heart. And we've talked about it. The schedule for the Browns is really rough. It's really rough, even with Jameson Winston out there chucking the football out. And they won. They won, and that was a thing, a crazy statistic. If you all don't know, that Jameson Winston has never in his NFL career played an outdoor game below 40 degrees. That's crazy. Especially us being Lions fans, NFC North people, and the Lions play in a dome, but we play against Chicago and the Packers regularly. So we see a lot of outdoor games, a lot of cold games. And because Jameson Winston started his NFL career with Tampa Bay and then bounced around a little bit, went to New Orleans, and he's never had to go out and play in that cold weather, and they get that dub. It's crazy. And it just sucks for fantasy wise. It sucks to see all those terrible scores and to have snow. And I want to bitch a little bit about that global warming because we didn't get any snow out here in Michigan. We're way further north. It's crazy to see all that snow going in for that game when we're not that far north from Cleveland and we haven't gotten any snow. It's just rainy and cold and nasty. And I hate that. I hate that. I would rather there be 6 inches to a foot of snow out there versus it being cold and rainy. That weather is just obnoxious and doesn't serve a place in my life. I hate that. And so just to continue on this fantasy football, I'm going to go with my family league here right now. And I've talked about this before, but my sister, who has had a team throughout the years, and she didn't really know what she was doing. She got married, and I was talking lots of shit to my brother-in-law, her husband, being like, bro, stop helping her. And he was like, bro, she will not. She doesn't want my help. She refuses to have my help. And she's 11 and 0 in my family league right now. My sister is 11 and 0. That is crazy, right? And shout out to the fam for, we started this back when I was super young, 10, 11 years old. My uncles, my grandma and my mom have won the league, and my grandmother said that she didn't want to participate this year because she thought that she would be holding people back. Grandma, you've won more recently than me if you're listening to this podcast. So you're not holding anybody back. And Abby just made the most baller move. Last week, she sat Lamar Jackson against the Steelers and played Bo Nix. Just take my sister sat Lamar Jackson for Bo Nix, and she was 100% correct and right to do it. He had his worst game of the season against the Steelers. Bo Nix scored more points than him, and she won again. I just like this is fantasy football right here. My little sister, who grew up not giving a fuck about fantasy football, is over here dominating and making decisions like that in our family league. Shout out to my homie Destin and his lady Caitlin. Caitlin started this as just a filler person too. She is whooping ass in both the leagues she's in. She's in our dynasty league and in our original league that she started in, and she's whooping my ass in both leagues. She whooped my ass by like 100 points in the dynasty league, and I don't know. I think that's what makes fantasy football so much fun. That people who don't really care about football but like winning, like my sister, like Caitlin, they eventually get the hang of it to a point where they get, and this is the prop. This is where I want to get to, guys. I'm getting sidetracked, but my sister and Caitlin are making decisions based upon limited information. And then the rest of us, like myself, I watch all the podcasts. I look at the strength of schedule. I look at the cornerbacks that might be facing certain receivers, maybe the safeties that will come down and cover the tight ends. And I try my best to make intelligent, constructive decisions based upon matchups and who they are playing. And after doing this for over 20 years, it's still gambling. Even if I do all this research, I have all the tools, and I think I know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know. That cornerback who you think is going to shadow the wide receiver could get a concussion in the first quarter, and then that receiver blows up. Or vice versa, that cornerback blows up that wide receiver and gets him a concussion, and now that receiver's out for the game. And then the backup wide receiver blows up for 30 points because they're not shadowing him, because they're not ready for that guy to be available to do the things he's going to do. It's a gamble, and that's what makes it so much fun. And with all that being said, it sucks to lose. It sucks to lose. I do so much research. We literally started a sports podcast because we enjoy doing the research. We enjoy looking at all the angles and all the teams. And shout out to Martha Ford for being a terrible owner for a long time because I wouldn't have fallen in love with the intricacies of fantasy football if it hadn't been for the Detroit Lions being so bad for so long. I had to rely on fantasy football to give me some breath of life. And I won't lie, guys. Like I said, I do a lot of studying. I watch all the podcasts, listens to the podcasts. I try and do my best research on the players. I really do. And I've only won two championships in 20 years. I haven't played as many leagues as I have the last 2 years. This year I'm in 7 leagues. Usually it was just like a one friend league in my family league for a long, long time, for at least 15 years. In the last couple years, it's been 3 to 7 leagues. So I'm really, really starting to get in it. But then that just means you lose more. And so shout out to my Detroit Lions for making me feel good when you're getting your ass handed to you in every single fantasy football league because you never know what's going to happen. You never know. And shout out to Destin, aka King Collusion, for getting me into trading because I love doing the franchise mode in Madden, Dynasty mode in NCAA. I love doing the building of the team. And this year I finally made like a bunch of trades, way more trades than I've ever made in 20 years of playing fantasy football. And it's so much fun. And I really enjoy that aspect that I really haven't gotten into, that I'm just starting to get into. And I really enjoy trying to make trades where you feel like both parties are going to win, because I feel like that's what most trades are in fantasy football, is that somebody is trying to feel like they win. But I want to make sure when I suggest a trade that I feel like both parties will win, because otherwise, the trade's not going to go through. Why would you accept a trade where you feel like you're losing? That doesn't make any fucking sense. And I still, will I can I digress. I will get super sidetracked if I continue on that. So let me just roll into my next league here. Shout out to my little sister who's 11 and 0, and yeah, someone's got to whoop her ass, please, somebody. The league that is most irritating is the Tavern 101 original Tavern 101 league. I can never do good in this league. Every single year, I am barely on the cusp of the playoffs, and I'm never making the playoffs. And I've got Saquon, number two or number one fantasy running back in the league. Like, I've got DK Metcalf. I've got Taysom Hill and T. Higgins. But I just, it's not there. It's not there, bro. It's never there for that league. I just can never draft all the right people. It's just crazy. Fantasy is nuts. Now we'll get to the big league though. We have a huge matchup. Excuse me. I'm facing the number one team in the league that I'm commish of, and it's gonna be rough. Right now, I have a 37% chance to win. I'm 7-4. Number one team is 8-3. And like I said, Cedric Tillman right there in my 1v1 right now. Cedric Tillman is facing Cooper Kupp, and he's got 2.8 points. So that's putting me at a huge disadvantage to start. And that just fucking sucks. Sucks so bad. Chris Boswell got 7 points. And of course, that's his kicker. So, the kicker scored more points than one of my starting wide receivers. That's not a great way to start. He's got Baker Mayfield versus Kyler Murray. That's a good matchup. Christian McCaffrey versus Kenneth Walker. That's a great matchup as well. Hilarious that that could be one of the big differences. Tyrone Tracy now versus Javonte Williams for Denver. I need Tyrone Tracy to just ball out with the Daniel Jones thing, with Daniel Jones being done. Tyrone Tracy, bro, this is your team now. Let's go. Let's ball out. Quintez Johnson versus Debo Samuel, another interesting matchup. You never know. Debo can go off for 30 or be completely non existent. Cedric Tillman versus Cooper Cup. Already talked about that. Another one, Trey McBride versus Cam Otten for the Buccaneers. So we're both doubling up with our quarterback tight end duo here, and Cam Otten is the number one wide receiver for the Bucks right now. If Mike Evans is even healthy enough to fucking play a full snap load, and then Lad McConkey versus Jameson Williams, Michael Pittman Jr. versus Kareem Hunt. Like, oh, it's not looking good for me. And I'm sitting with Taysom Hill, Amari Cooper, and T. Higgins on my bench. Man, it's gonna be rough. He's got the only one he's really lacking is James Cook. I don't know. I don't know, man. If I can pull this out, I'm gonna really need a huge week out of Kyler Murray, Trey McBride, and Kenneth Walker. That's what I need to win in this league and keep me rolling to get in the playoffs. And I have never won my league that I'm commissioner of. So it would be nice to just go through the playoffs and not lose in the first round. It would be nice. It would be fucking awesome. Let me see here what we got left. We got our Dynasty League. Shout out to Shrimp Dick Bani. That is what they decided my team name should be. So I switched it to that. And this league, I actually have a 59% chance to win. This Dynasty League has been super interesting. My fucking Cedric Tillman again with 2.8 points against Xavier Worthy. That is a much better matchup than Cooper Cup. I could still see Xavier Worthy only having like 4 or 5 points, so that it doesn't kill me. But man, Tyreek Hill in this league, he was my number one draft pick in this Dynasty League. This is our first year. He has been absolutely killing me. I would be awesome to see Tyreek Hill blow up for like 30 points, bro. Like Jacoby Myers is playing Denver too. So he's going to see Patrick Surtain probably shadow. And that's what I'm talking about. Like my sister is probably not necessarily thinking about stuff like that. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll bench Jacoby Myers for so and so and this, that, the other thing. And then Jacoby Myers goes off for like 25 points, even though he's supposed to be shut down by one of the best defensive backs in the league. And that's all that double thinking that it just drives me nuts. It's crazy. It's crazy. Fantasy football is nuts. And the fact that we allow it to give us happiness when we know it's just gambling, you might as well be going to a casino and dropping quarters into a machine because that's exactly what this is. It's still human beings, and players can get hurt walking on the field. They could tear an ACL just walking onto the field. Like that can happen. It can ruin your day. But I need it. I need it. I need it in my life because the Lions were so bad for so long. And thankfully, even though I'm in 7 leagues and I might not win any one of them, if the Lions are the number one seed in the NFL, number one, number one seed, they go in the playoffs with a first round bye, and I don't win any money for any of these fantasy football leagues, I'll still be a happy man because I spent too much time with the Lions being absolutely grandma booty cheeks level of disgraceful. We don't want to see that anymore. We're looking for Super Bowl or bust. Let's go. Let's go Lions. Hope y'all have a fantastic fantasy weekend. Make sure you put in all your good parlays. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe on our Crossfaded Sports on all your platforms. Just Google us. And as always, everybody love everybody. Ely.